we're all we have, right?
Definitely, definitely.
The issue that we want to look at now is right on your screen, the FG and the monthly transport grant that is being proposed. So many issues around that one. You wanted to talk about the 5,000 naira bid the other time. One of the questions you're asking is, where are we going to get the 40 million people? How does government intend, right?
Yes, because they say that the money is supposed to be transferred to accounts. And I'm thinking about the woman at the traffic light by my house who's sitting down there with her pair of twins. I'm sure she doesn't even know the meaning of the word bank account. And definitely she's among the poorest of the poor in Nigeria.
Okay. Well,
and I'm sure she will not be covered by this program because she doesn't have a bank account. And there are many more like that. The beggars in Butemeta, for instance, you know, the lepers along the road to Ore. Are they going to be part of this program?
The question, that's one of several questions, because another question to ask is, why monthly transport grant? Why is it transport that government has chosen? Because it doesn't only affect the transport sector, it affects that particular, subsidy affects not only the transport sector, it affects us across board. But I guess we can begin to take our guests now. The first two of them are ready.
Okay. Well, Professor Samuel Odewunmi is the Professor of Transportation at Lagos State University. Good morning, and thank you for joining us, Prof.
Good morning. It's always my pleasure to be here.
And Lee Udodo is a public affairs analyst. Thank you for joining us as well.
You may want to unmute. Please unmute yourself so we can hear you.
Mr. Dodo.
Don't worry. Let's begin the conversation. I'm sure we'll get to it.
Okay, Professor. Government is referring to this as transport subsidy, which will be given to 40 million people, 40 of the poorest in Nigeria. What are your thoughts about this initiative?
Well, let me say that we have a proverb that says, that is,
What?
a frog does not know the way to the river, it turns to the pond. The federal government is at sea. They lack the clue on how to resolve the issue. So they are just playing all sorts of tricks. And the most painful part to me personally is that they had about 3 big opportunities to have done this effortlessly, and people will have even clapped for them, to get the nation out of this gridlock, lockdown, economic lockdown for over 30 years. We are doing on this thing. You see, when the price of oil dropped, I spent almost half a day shouting, when the price is now $20 per barrel, that is the best time they would have done it. But what were they telling us? The Minister of Petroleum was saying, okay, we are doing price modulation, because the federal government was gaining from what they are selling. So their thinking was, when the price goes up later, we will use our part of this saving. What a clueless and the most honestly unpatriotic act. Because oil subsidy is one of our greatest bottleneck for our economic survival. And let me say this outrightly. I've always said oil subsidy is a crime against this nation. Whatever anybody might have said, they are just playing to the gallery that this is not the right time. Has there been any time, any government since Obasanjo, or before Obasanjo? I think Obasanjo was the one that had it rough. That's what made Usiomole a superstar. You see, the nation must get out of this quagmire. of so-called subsidy. Anytime attempt was made, there are so many social activists that will come and give reasons, including this president. He went on road and he said if anybody is talking about subsidy, it is a fraud. I'm quoting him. Now he knows there is subsidy. It means as at that time, he has not done his arithmetics. So let nobody continue to say, even Labour, it is high time they just let this nation go. Let Nigeria go. Release Nigeria from this fire of oil subsidy. And I'm beginning to suspect that those who are taking rents from the payment of this subsidy, they are the ones that will want media campaign to tell the country that no, this is not the right time. That's the argument. Not the right time. It is corruption. It is this. We are too poor. Are we poorer than Ghana? Is that Ghana not better off removing subsidy? Which country is paying this type of money? But now, we even like luxury of paying it. In the next few months, let's say 6 months maximum, we will not be able to pay. So nature has a way of dragging those who refuse to work. So in order, because they don't know how to go about it, they are afraid of the backlash. That's why all these people, and that is not going to worsen things. Because this money will not be going, the money they will have used to passing things and the economy generally. Get your infrastructure done, get your health sector done, things that will benefit the economy globally, they are now giving to some people. When you continue to subsidize consumption, you are killing your productivity capacity and your ingenuity. All subsidy must go. Without this 5,000 is just, what do they call it? A bait. To say, okay, we are doing something, we are thinking of the poor. Whatever they do, I don't mind. The painful part to me is that they had very good opportunities. When they could have removed it, and they were now saying, when it was increased to that one, the 147 or so that we are buying now, they ought not to fix price. Deregulate, that's the action. But some people, for some reasons, they want the price to be uniform. What is price uniform in Nigeria? Is economic not running? So if we are all together, it is time to be patriotic. We should stop playing to the guy. When they went for Ogodjota, where are those people now? I shouted, and people are even threatening me that time that it is corruption in Jonathan's government. Is it corruption in Obasanjo's government? If you are holding something unnatural down, it will not be able to, it's not sustainable. That's the word. We may fool ourselves for some years, but it will get to a point where we have no choice.
Okay.
But to do
Thank
it,
you, Prof.
no matter how bitter it is.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Mr. Dodo, we have seen cost of fuel go up in this country many times, and we know what happens. The price of fuel goes up, and immediately the price of everything else goes up. So if subsidy is removed and fuel price, pump price goes up to what people are talking about now, a figure of 340 naira, just imagine what costs are going to be like in the market. Meanwhile, there's no talk about increase in salaries. Minimum wage will still be 30 naira, which some governments are not even able to pay. So imagine what prices are going to be like in the market. How are Nigerians going to cope with that kind of price hike? Mr. Dodo, are you there? Can you please unmute yourself so we can hear you?
Well, unfortunately, we can't hear Mr. Dodo. I believe that the back end is working assiduously at that, and we're also hoping that our third guest will join us. But, you know, Prof, let's come back to you while we wait on that issue. Well, It's a difficult job that government has on its hands, removing this subsidy that you have talked about. And a number of people are wondering, it's not a question of whether or not, it's a function of when. It is something that has to happen. But one of the arguments of Labour is, I mean, you would remember there was an announcement by the group managing director of the NNPC back in March last year, I think, or thereabout, when he, came on one of our programs and said subsidy has been removed or is just about to be removed completely because, it was very favorable at the time to do that on the basis of what you said. The oil prices were very, very low all over the nation. It was done at the time, at least.
All over the world.
Yes, at least that's the information that reached us. But the question of course, naturally, prices began to rise again when, in fact, fuel price at the time, I think, was reduced by a fraction, but then when oil prices began to rise again, a number of other things began to go up with it, including the price of fuel and all of that. So, as you said, many people agree with you, it's not a question of whether or not, it's a question of when. But then Labour is kicking, just as you have said. Perhaps the challenge that a number of people are talking to is communicating the facts to Nigerians, getting people to buy into the fact that things are going to be much tougher than they have it on their hands now. What are we going to tell? What should government be telling Nigerians? Because it's a reality that has to happen. It's only a question of when.
Yeah, thank you. I will say that, first of all, let me start with Labour. I'm pleading with them. For how long can we continue in this wrong-headed road? Mr. President of Labour, you will be popular when you take people to the street and say the same argument, oh, life is difficult now. When was there a time when attempt was made? If you know that if anybody does minimum of economics in the secondary school, everything you do, there is opportunity costs. All this subsidy, where 50% of it goes to Togo, to Dahomey, to Niger, to Cameroon, to Sudan, because that is where if you see the volume of oil we are importing, not for our economy, but for the economy of the neighboring countries, you will show that to think. And I want to, you mentioned one key word. Government does not communicate because they are insincere. Look at PDP. The chairman of PDP, that's a government that tried with Obasanjo, tried with Jonathan to deregulate, and this government now wants to deregulate, but because it is now popular to be in order to win the election. I'm telling you, if anybody thinks that when PDP comes, they will not remove subsidy, they are joking. And Dr. Ayu is a great hero of mine. And I was shocked when he said that the life will be, that is just plain hospitality at the risk, at the cost of taking this nation down. A huge economic cost. Do you know how much that is going into this and how much it can do for us? So for me, and I want to plead with the media and the channel especially, you are a very powerful platform. Please let us all save this country together. You see, you give your children what they need, not what they want. Serious communication, and that is the key word now. If we have a government that knows how to communicate, if Mr. President, we have to prostrate to Nigerians and say, Nigeria, I apologize. I told you when I was campaigning that there was no subsidy, that it was corruption. I now find out that it is true. The arithmetics, the econometrics of it all is that there is subsidy, and we cannot continue this way. You know, Lamido said, Jonathan government will not come down, but that is the next government will not be able to sustain it. Then, if you are in the same disease for 30 to 40 years, because children started knowing about fuel subsidy riot, fuel subsidy protest, maybe when they were in the primary school, those that have graduated in the university. So let everybody remove their knees from the neck of this country as far as subsidy is concerned. Let the government do it. Let us go through the pain once and for all. It will start to come down. That is what the government should communicate. Let also the media stop all this pandering, because it is sweet to the ears, but bitter to the heart. The heart of the economy of this nation. So people is benefiting from the subsidy anyway.
Prof, if you can speak to, I mean, all the things you said, those are our realities. But moving forward, resolving this issue, how should government be communicating? What should government be saying to people? Don't forget, Prof, that any time government says anything, there's a high level of distrust. Very high. The trust quotient between the government and the governed is extremely low. I don't even know if that trust quotient can be subsidized. So how do we talk? How do we communicate with people that things are going to get a little tough? Permit me also, Prof, to refer you to the Second Republic. In the Second Republic government of Shehu Shagari, it was towards the end of the first term, into the second term, that they began to talk about austerity measures, asking people to tighten their belts. While it would seem like the government of the day and the people in government of the day, they were only getting fatter. So a people that have had such experiences over the years, how do we tell the people, how does government tell the people, how does the media, you've put us in the fray, tell people to trust government when the trust quotient cannot even be subsidized?
Non-existent.
Thank you. Honestly, I do not want people to trust government. Tell them not to trust government. Government is untrustworthy. They want to win election, that's all they are concerned about. But this is about us. This is about this country. It is not about the government and Nigeria. It's about Nigeria for all of us.
But it's government that is going to remove this subsidy.
Now, you may contribute to helping government do it, or you may make it more difficult. Like what PDP is doing now, like what India will be doing soon, like whatever is about to start doing.
Hello, testing. Can you hear me now?
Well, Mr. Dodo, just a second. We'll come back to you. We'll come back to you, Mr. Dodo. Prof, please continue.
So, all right. The communication should not be trust government. This is what we got to do. We have to do what we ought to do. If you anything you want to do, like when they circumcise a boy at the young age, they will say that is the pain he must have as a man. If anybody loves this country, if you are patriotic, we should get out of this quagmire. The fact that it is coming up means we are so stupid that we are not able to solve this problem. When the problem kept up creeping in your life, you are picking venereal diseases everybody. It means your lifestyle you cannot sustain your health system. So I don't want that. Nobody should trust government. But for government to help itself, it has to come clean. Apologize. That's the first place they should start. And that should start from Mr. President. Because he is one of those who put people on this frenzy of not believing the government before him. So anything he says now, people do not want to believe him. Let him apologize. Let all the social activists at Ojota, let them apologize to the parents of these people. That we are back in the wrong course. And now we are at the end of the junction. This is a close. We are entering the very end of the close. So the communication, the message is we apologize. We apologize to all government before. This is what Nigeria has got to do for the survival of this country.
Okay. Mr. Dodo, you are a public affairs analyst. So what has been agitating the minds of a lot of people since this announcement was made was how does government intend to determine and pick out 40 million vulnerable Nigerians? I'm sure you've been thinking about that as well. Give us your thoughts.
Well, for me, the issue is not about it reaching out to 40 million Nigerians. The issue for me is the sustainability of the program. If you say you want to start giving 5,000 naira stipends to most vulnerable Nigerians, just like you pointed out earlier on in the program, that the real vulnerable people, of which these monies are going to be paid into. So how do they get their 5,000 naira stipend? Now, if it's going to be something that is consistent, how sustainable is it? Even if it is sustainable over a period of time, that means Nigeria is tending towards a social welfare state. What we're trying to come up with is social welfareism. Okay, Nigeria is a consuming economy.
I beg your pardon, Mr. Dodo. I beg your pardon, Mr. Dodo. Government was very specific and said that this subsidy was to be given for 6 months. Government was specific. Yes, 6 months.
Now, okay, even if it's for 6 months, it still shows that what the policy they are trying to, the program directive is a social welfare policy. That is very, very inconsistent with a consuming economy like Nigeria. It can only lead to more disparity between the rich and the poor. Because when you give 40 million Nigerians for 5,000 naira each, the resources that is being pulled together is being spread across people. Now, the purchasing power will only be increased for just a short period of time, which means people will now go and start buying goods and services that are, that are provided by the capitalists. The disparity between the rich and the poor will continue to widen. For me, I think that is a fireman approach to a fundamental problem. The issue at hand in Nigeria is not about giving out stipends to people. The issue at hand is about creating wealth. A consuming economy, the government has to provide the enabling environment for wealth creation. There's no other way about it. The big capitalist economy in abroad, the Western economy, what they did was they created the enabling environment for entrepreneurs to thrive. People with ideas that can bring in investments will come. The enabling environment is there for people to invest and thereby creating jobs. And if you create jobs, you create wealth. But in Nigeria, we are a consuming economy. People have ideas that can transform to job creation. People have solid things that they can do to turn to investments, thereby creating jobs and thereby creating wealth. But the government is not putting the enabling environments for people to actualize their dreams and potentials. That, for me, is the basic fundamental problem that needs to be resolved. Removing subsidy, yes, it is okay for them to remove subsidy, but have you created the alternative for people to fall back on? Before you can say you want to remove subsidy, there have to be like foreign direct investments in refineries. We have 4 refineries that are not functioning, for crying out loud. These 4 refineries, you earmark billions of dollars every year to maintain these refineries. Who is a fool? Who is fooling who?
Well, one can only imagine what will happen, especially now that NNPC has been privatized, even though we're still waiting for the governing directors.
Before the privatization of NNPC, they should have made sure all the assets of NNPC have been privatized to the right sources. They can get foreign direct investors to come in and take over these refineries and make sure they are functioning properly. So you can do total deregulation without refinery. People are going going to, the people have not seen suffer yet.
Okay.
They need to make sure that market forces will determine the prices of petroleum products when the
Oh dear.
they fully privatized. It's not enough because it's hello.
Oh dear. We're having technical issues with Mr. Dodo, so we'll bring Prof back. Prof, in real terms, how much do you think that this 5,000 naira will affect the life of a Nigerian, a poor Nigerian?
Please, this 5,000 approach is another wrong-headed decision. As I said, it is like there's something we call Omon Jowo in my crime. They give a child a rubber that looks like a feeding bottle, but it is completely empty. It's a pretense. It's a subterfuge. It's a drama to appear as if we are doing something. For somebody who cannot come clean and tell Nigerians the truth, let me tell them that it is better they use this 2 billion they want to be wasting to ensure that our Papa is fixed so that the private importers of fuel will get their fuel right on time. They will not spend so much. If they bring their fuel today, it will get to Sokoto almost the same day. That is what they should use the money to do. They should make sure they reduce almost to zero the charges they want to put on those that will be importing fuel. And their hope when they are putting June, we know the trick. They are waiting for Dangote. If they have to borrow Dangote money or loan him, whatever language it is, so that he will finish his refinery on time, okay? Because they will be giving to political acolytes, all those things, we know it. They should just please be honest and be sincere for once. How do you do the selection? How do you do the sampling? Where do you get your data? I've never believed in those things. They are just waste of time, waste of resources, wrong-headed approach. Do things that you see when you continue to feed people. You are giving them fish to eat on a day-to-day basis. Make life easier for them to function. Clearly, people be able to export their cashew, be able to export their yam. Free Apapa, for instance, then get that 200 billion, get it to subsidize import. Okay, if you are bringing fuel, the federal government is going to give you so much to reduce your cost of transportation. So this will impact on the eventual price. So, honestly, for the 5,000 they want to do, it is, I would say it is fraud. Well, honestly, they should go away from it. It is deceiving people like me and you. But from somebody like me, I'm not deceived. They don't know what to do. They want to give the impression that they are doing something.
Yeah, well, perhaps there is also a reason to give some information to people, because there are those who are wondering, wait a minute, can we even get the right figures? For instance, there are those who are wondering, how do we arrive at the subsidy figures? People out there, those who are wondering, how much how much per liter of this fuel comes from which countries? What the landing costs are, and other such costs that ramp up the costs in the first place. Do you think government has been able to significantly and sufficiently even tell people that, look, we have been paying subsidy because of this figures?
Well, in the first instance, their subsidy arithmetic is voodoo arithmetics. The voodoo arithmetics is you bring your fuel to the ports, they give you social markup, 2% for the delay at the ports, 2% for getting out of a buffer zone, 30% to get it, 10% for the bridging to get it to the north, 5% for this, 10% for interest, 10%. That is how they do the markup. So they've made those figures constant. So even if you bring your fuel today and it does not spend 24 hours before you get it out, the government will still pay you. Those are the evil in the system, evil arithmetics in the system that Nigerians don't know. By freeing the system, you allow people introduce efficiency for private operators to bring the goods in. That's all. Because what you have matter, all those things are not what we go in when you allow individual to efficiently bring in those things. So the way they calculated it is like a Excel sheet. You change this, that moves, you change that, that moves. But with an individual investor, individual operator, he knows that, let me tell you, to get a good from China to Apapa is less than to get it from Apapa to Prestac. Who has the importers? So all this thing is being allowed because government says they are importing, they are subsidizing. So what the importers do is that they will say, I brought 1 million tons, and then 1 million tons, you have marked it up 50% for me, so I will get money for 1.5 million tons. So you will pay me the 0.5 increase. So it is not a iron cast thing, but they've casted it in iron because that is the way it is worked out. They are all assumptions. All the arithmetic of internal movement of fuel in Nigeria, they are all assumptions. And you will pay this, you will pay that, you will pay that. And that is why some cartel, I repeat, some cartel actually, I mean, I don't know whether anybody read the story of this Contraris man when he was complaining about somebody who borrowed money who said that this guy got about 50 billion for fuel not imported. We are aware of all this. So the 5,000, I repeat, is a wrong-headed approach. Put it where the price will not go too high. Because if you now say, let me subsidize the transportation to bring fuel to Nigeria, let me not take for the first 6 months no tax at all on fuel. All we will be doing is to ensure there is quality. So that is all. And make the road free. And tell your checkpoint, toll collecting officers, please lay off these people. All the extortions in the world, people are paying 100,000, 200,000. We shouted about this. Nobody is doing anything about it. Corruption working on all over the place. They can't work in. That is the way. That is what they should focus. But because politicians want to get money for their boys that they will use for campaign, that is the name they will put on that list.
Okay. Well, Mr. Dodo, you may also want to speak to the computation of the subsidy figures, because a number of people are still wondering, are we really paying subsidy? Because, I mean, as Prof had mentioned earlier, the current president at some point himself was at sea concerning the issue. Was like, hey, there is nothing like subsidy. And he said that at the time because he at some point was Minister of Petroleum and he was chairman of Petroleum. Oh, Mr. Dodo, I understand that he's not there anymore for now. And okay, anyway, Prof, I guess you are our main guest today on this issue. But
let me say something quickly, sir.
Okay.
You see, these arguments that people use to hold the people of Nigeria down, this argument of, okay, they should go and fix the refinery, the environment, whoever waits for the blinking of the crab will stay too long at the beach. You see, if you say you are going to wait until the refineries are fixed, it means you don't want us to do it. You are looking for excuse not for us because refineries may not be fixed.
But is it excusable, Prof, that we have 4 refineries that we've been spending a lot of money over the years for turnaround maintenance and it never really turned around? Should we be asking questions around that?
Why do we now foolishly want to expect that it will turn around when you have not changed the actors? And the actors are Nigerians. We lack capacity for organization and management, especially as far as government is concerned. The only we come to this reality, when you come to, you see, that time I teach and people say the problem is because the policy is right or the theory is right, but it is the execution. I said no. Your theory, your policy must build in the characters of those that are going to implement those policies. Because if they are satanic, bring a policy that you know that Satans will not be able to read. That is what INEC is doing now. INEC knows that if you want to dine with the devil of Nigerian politicians, you have to have a very long spoon, like 10-kilometer spoon. So we cannot be able to, we cannot tell ourselves that, okay, let's wait until all the variables are right. I can tell you, for the life of all of us, the variables will never be right. Because they will say they are fixing the demand. Technically, government is waiting for Dangote. That's the reality. They were hoping that Dangote will roll out and it will solve, it will get them out of this. But Dangote keep kicking the opening down the road, the kind of the opening of the refinery down the road. So my point is, the refineries will never come on stream. It is a people, it comes up today, it dies tomorrow. That is why we've been working to Babylon since about 20 years ago.
So are you then saying that even with the Petroleum Industry Act in full force, with the privatization of the NNPC and its subsidiaries, no hopes?
No hopes.
So what's the point?
Because except the private investors' shares is more than that of government. If it is 51, in which case the private investors are going to determine who is the GMD. But if Nigerian government is going to appoint who is going to be GMD, and Nigerian government is going to appoint who is the marketing manager, forget it, my brother. I ain't going nowhere.
But Prof, if indeed subsidies are removed in 2022, does this not spell a lot of hardship for the common man? 340 naira approximately is what government is touting the pump price may rise up to. And you know how these things work in this country. Pump price goes up, the price of everything else goes up in Nigeria, and yet minimum wage is still 30 naira.
Please, that same argument is the argument that we've been using to deceive ourselves. I tell you verily, when economy is properly adjusted, all the countries that are not paying subsidy, I mentioned Ghana. Ghana has oil. It's not paying subsidy, but that's where our companies are relocating. The people we adjust. If you see, the point is this: when you continue to pretend as if, okay, price, people are worse off today than if subsidy were not paid. And the suffering of the so-called poor masses will not be significantly ameliorated. What you are just taking is placebo, full placebo. The poor man was paying full price for kerosene. They have been paying full price. Kerosene is closer to the poor people than petrol. You may say, yes, it will. Everything has cascading effect. But the point is, there is something they call cost-benefit analysis and something they call opportunity cost. The price we are paying for palliating the so-called poor people is making poor people to suffer times 10. So let the truth be told, let the fact be faced. Let us get into the real groove of economy of it, and let us be sincere. That argument, how many times have you canvassed it since the issue of economy has come up? That is the argument, and that is the thing that has not made things to work. So it's better to change the game. If you are playing a game, like people said, it is a foolish man that we keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. We have been keeping this subsidy for till kingdom come. And we have remained, this argument of poverty for the poor people is still in place. We have never been able to solve the poverty of the people. It is because what makes people rich or poor is not the peanuts government offers. It is what they work for and what it makes the environment. Let me tell you, if they spend this 200 billion in fighting insecurity, that the farmer will be able to go to his farm, he will be able to go to his village. If you say, okay, all state government buy weapons with this 200 billion, and change the firearm law, the governor can buy AK-47 for his Abateco and his what is that one in the east? This million, and the people can go to their farm and work. They will be better off, and there is no fear of kidnap. And you fix all those primary schools that are deregulated, they can go to the hospital and get cured. This is better for the poor man than the money somebody is holding. That is multiplying poverty. Don't give people money. In fact, you are destroying their ego. When people get money for not working, that is destroying their inner being. People derive joy in getting money for the work for the job they do. So we are promoting laziness, intellectual indolence. That's everybody wants to be in politics because that's where cheap money comes. And all of us, as long as we remain in that state of mind, where you can get something for nothing, then poverty will be our constant companions for the rest of our life until we wake up, because God is not mocked.
Well,
I give up.
I still come back to the issue of communication, Prof, with the people. This job of communicating with government is something that has to be done across board, that needs to be done across board. At least that's the understanding that I have at this moment, because it would seem like every time the federal government or even some state governments talk, people don't believe. Now, you've suggested that people should not trust government, but on this matter, only the government can do this work of removing subsidy and redirecting the funds. Only government can do that. People do not trust government, at least, and then you have also talked about, about the NLC and the position that they have held over the years until now. Part of this distrust came from the fact that the government, according to Labour, they are still in conversations about how this whole subsidy thing should go. And then, boom, government comes out, makes this announcement, as Alero said, maybe flew a kite, flying a kite to see what the reactions will be to it and all of that. So in terms of trust, we have to do something with that trust quotient, because it's not just on this issue, it's on almost every issue as far as government is concerned. You've talked about the politicization of some of these issues. It's about elections, political capital, and all of that. But at the end of the day, it's the people.
Please recall that when Jonathan wanted to remove this subsidy, he started a massive communication campaign with Lamido, with Ogojuwiala, with our comrades Oshiomole, to push the argument. That was the most creative way of dealing with the problem. But government did not wait until the opinion matured for people to say, because as at that time, it remained just about 3 months. If they continue the regional movement, and now if I want to say step by step, so fast to outline it. Number one, all those governments should apologize. That is the way to communicate effectively. Because if you have sinned and you realize that you have committed an error, your error may be sincerely wrong. Okay, I was wrong. You see, because that sense of apology will go a long way. This is what the government holds. That's where they should start. A big apology that we were sincerely wrong on this matter. People will honestly, now open their ears. That's where the distrust, the iron door of distrust. That is where you can first of all unlock it. So after apology. Let them call all the media editors, the proprietors of media houses. Please, we are in trouble. I saw my friend here, Linus Okori. I hope maybe he's to another program, I don't know. Now, convince them. Let people work out the logistics of the debate that they will throw up to Nigeria. Recall that as bitter as SAP, structural adjustment was, Babangida did that same razzmatazz by asking people to go around the country to debate. You see, apologize, approach those who are the owners of the megaphone. The media call them and confess to them and let them be convinced that people that are credible. Call people like Patutomi that we let Okonjo talk to them, and then those that have not lost their personal credibility, let them convince the media stable, because that's the first thing, that's the major channel. Then you will not have to go around the country. Let governors do their own. Let local government do their communication, because it is going to be mass. You are taking us on a wrong road. So you must work to take us back on track. But as I said, step one, apologize. Step two, get the backing of the media houses. Step three, go around the country to tell the people.
Okay. Well, Prof, now that you have given government the marching order, I hope someone is listening and taking notes. Thank you so much this morning, Prof.
Thank you very much. Professor Samuel Odewunmi, who's Professor of Transportation at the Lagos State University. We also had a very brief chat with Public Affairs Analyst Aliyu Dodo. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. I know that we couldn't hear you much, but you also made a contribution to this segment. Thank you all. Sunrise will return in just a moment with another conversation. Do join us.